What's up, everybody? We're finally back for another episode of the Corner Blue. I'm Andres Rico. I'm here with Hugo Alvarado. And let's break down the last two matches that have meant La Selectas moving on to the next qualifying round. The Caribbean Battle Royale is almost over. The map is getting smaller. The gas is getting smaller. And next on the menu, we have St. Kitts and Nevis in a couple of days. So we're going to break down the last couple of matches, the changes we've seen, because obviously it's a new chapter, new day for La Selecta. And fortunately for all of us, it's been a bright one. How you doing, Hugo?
Well, can't complain. It's been a successful week for the national team. And yes, I've been looking forward to recording this episode. It's been busy in many different areas, so we haven't been able to record, but here we are. And, excited to dissect what this week has been and everything we've seen with our national team.
I'm just stoked that these games are on TV and I haven't had to run around looking for links or anything like that. In the US, we've been lucky that Telemundo has the rights, so the matches were shown on Universo, and hopefully they continue to do that, obviously, since they have the rights to the World Cup. Because, yeah, it is hard to – if there's no broadcast here, it's definitely kind of tricky to find Canal Cuatro. I know they have an app, but I've never gotten it to work. So, yeah. Anyway, but let's break down this series of two matches that just occurred on the 5th against Virgin Islands and then later against Antigua and Barbuda. And fortunately for all of us, El Salvador got the result against Virgin Islands. It was, a blowout. Finally, a result that made sense on paper. Hugo, what were your thoughts on it, considering that this was Hugo Perez's debut in the qualifiers?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think that it has been clear since Hugo Perez took over as the head coach of the senior team that the priority was to win the games. Regardless of the result, the priority is to win the games. We accomplished that. I always thought, even before De Los Cobos left, that the Virgin Islands was one of those rivals that we can, score more than 5 goals against them. Obviously, I didn't think that about Montserrat. But, the Virgin Islands, I mean, when you look at their squad, they're full of local players and some community college players in the mainland. So, I mean, it was, that was something where we had to, win by a big result. With that being said, I'm not, I'm happy that we scored 7 goals, because I think that just like when we play against a rival that is superior than us and they score 5 goals on us, 6 goals on us, we should have compassion against those little teams. We should, score the goals that we can and win by big results. And we did that. So I'm happy that we won in the way we did. I think a little further, maybe we can talk about how our thoughts about how the team performed. But I think the bottom line is that we got the results. No surprises for me, at least. I always thought that we could get the big results against the Virgin Islands and get a good result against Antigua and Barbuda.
One thing that was interesting is that the starting 11 was practically a copy and paste from the De Los Cobos era, which seemed to make sense. Obviously, you want to make some type of a smooth transition considering what was at stake. And one thing that has been reoccurring is that at least under the Los Cobos, it seemed like El Salvador played down to its rivals, not to take anything away from them. But there was another aspect, or there was another vibe or energy that came across this team, where it wasn't just about starting and playing from the back. It wasn't just about possession, but there was more of a frontal attack, even considering that Virgin Islands kind of just parked the bus and played in the back. What I did like was seeing that spark coming from Joshua Perez when he came in. Obviously, David Rugamas, when he came in, had a great impact, ended up with the hat trick. But there were interesting things here and there that it was good to see Hugo Perez tweaking what's already been there. Because in my opinion, this is a soft rebuild when you look at the names, because obviously the player pool for El Salvador is pretty limited. But I think you're seeing that change in mentality. I saw a story earlier today out of El Salvador where Alex Larin was interviewed post-match against Antigua and Barbuda, and he was saying, I think the change of coaches has helped out the national team a lot. Not to criticize Los Cobos or anything, but we seem to reach this point of comfort, and at trainings where there's high expectations of us, there's a higher intensity, and then on top of that there's the younger kids coming in, so there's that competition for a spot. And that's what he said during that interview. And you can tell it comes across where there's not these like lackadaisical parts of the match. Obviously there were some mistakes. I think there's still some fine tuning, especially during the Antigua and Barbuda match. I feel like the middle core has to be more concrete, but I did like seeing Zabaleta and how he controlled the defense. I liked how he was playing from the back, starting with the Virgin Islands, how there were touches, long balls, depending on the situation. And I think Marvin Monterrosa has finally settled back into his role. Also, now that he's a captain as well. So that core, if they can hold on to it, see whether or not they bring back Narciso, depending on the situation. I still want to see that partner with Zabaleta be a little more concrete, because I think his name is Ronan Rodriguez. He seemed a little iffy, kind of did some of that U23s mistakes of kind of being slow out the back or slow making a decision, especially against Antigua and Barbuda. And I'm hoping either he's able to rise to the occasion or Dominguez gets, match fit and we can see a little more consistency in the back. Because I think that was the only shaky thing that I noticed, that obviously these guys had never played with each other and they're getting used to each other. But yeah, the center backs, I kind of want them to be a little more fine-tuned.
Definitely. I think we had discussed here before on the CornerBlue that the change in the coaching staff was going to be positive, even if it was just a psychological shift for the national team. I think there was a much needed change. The team had reached a flat
Plateau,
performance. Yeah, it was like it didn't really do much. It was like, okay, we were getting the results, and results are great. And I've said, hey, De Los Cobos was getting the results. And yes, he was, but I don't think we were that excited about the way we were playing. And I just want to go back, Andres, to your first comment. I mean, I think there were several changes. I mean, you have the core of the midfield, of course. I think that's where we had the least amount of changes. But in the back, we had Zabaleta, Larin, and Rodriguez. That's three. So that's three new faces that we were not really seeing with De Los Cobos. Then in the midfield, I mean, we have Monterrosa. He's a solid player there. Seren, of course, he's been there under De Los Cobos. Then we had
Portillo was the new person in the mid.
Yes, and I like him. He's a strong. He's a big guy. It's been a while since we had a player like him with his characteristics in that position. I think he can balance things out, because when we have Narciso and Monterrosa playing there, so we don't have muscle in the mid. I mean, yes,
much of
Orellana,
a physical presence.
Yeah, I mean, Orellana, so he's a strong player. He hustles, but there are some things that, when you have a big frame, it makes a difference, and Clavito definitely has that. So that was a nice surprise. Although I think he played in the last De Los Cobos game, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember. Then we had Josh, that's new face, and of course the return of Bonilla. So I think it was like a 50-50 balance between, the new faces and the old faces. And it makes sense. I don't think you can always, make like a huge overhaul, especially when you're playing a qualifier. I saw someone in El Salvador. I really don't know who they are, but it appeared on my tweet feed, and they were like making fun of Perez for saying, oh, I want to bring youth to the national team, and then they make reference to Bonilla and someone else. And to me, it's like, come on, guys. I mean, do you really expect us to put a whole U23 team in there? I mean, it doesn't really make sense. You have to find a balance of experienced players with the new players. And I like seeing that Hugo's doing that. And the other part that I want to highlight that I really enjoy and appreciate it this time around is that Hugo didn't really hesitate to make subs.
Yeah,
And
you could tell that it was already planned ahead. They knew what the situation was and what time, and they made
right.
them.
Right. I mean, and you have to, right? I mean, if you have 6 games in 2 weeks, you have to. But that's not something that we were seeing on the De Los Cobos. I mean, we were playing Montserrat, tying the game in much need of subs, and he wouldn't make subs. And that's something that I appreciate about Hugo Perez in the first game against the Virgin Islands, and the second game he used all of his subs, and I think that's important to highlight because I always saw, as much as I was disappointed when CONCACAF did what they did, I always thought that maybe having these extra games against lower rivals could be a good way of bringing the players together, establishing a style of play, and basically having friendly matches, but competitive. You're competing to qualify to the next round of the World Cup. So it's great to see players like Walmer Martinez, who he doesn't have much professional experience under his wing. So when I like what I've seen of him so far, but you can see that he needs to get a little bit more miles under his belt. And I really like how he played. A lot of players. He's experimenting with players that can play in several positions. I mean, Jairo played as a right back against the U.S. Virgin Islands. Yesterday, he went in as a right wing, which is more of his natural position. So I'm liking that he's using the talents of the players and testing them out in the different positions that they can play. I think that's a positive note. I mean, Zabaleta, I think he has experience. I mean, he has over 100 games in MLS, I believe. So it shows, it shows, his experience shows. I must say I was very happy when he scored, because one of the things I've been saying for years, probably for like 8 years or so, when people will ask me, so what's Zabaleta's style? And I was like, well, he has good size. I mean, he's not as big as Purdy or tall as Purdy, but he does have a bigger frame than Purdy. He is more physical, probably a little more aggressive, and he scores goals because of his background of playing college soccer as a center forward, so he can help us in set play. So when I saw him score last night, I was like screaming my guts out.
Scouting report right there.
So anyways, yes, I'm happy for him. I'm happy that he's taking a leadership role in the national team. I think there's space for that with all the youngsters that we have, and it's something to to admire, because he doesn't speak the language yet. And when I hear that, and he's one of the captains and chosen by the players, that tells you a lot about the respect that he has earned from the players to be in a position like that. Bonilla, I mean, all players go through the good and bad moments. I personally, I still think that he's probably one of the best number nines that we have right now at this time, based on what he's done with the national team, based on the years that he spent abroad. It's not easy to spend that long, to be playing in foreign leagues that long. And even if he doesn't score the goals, I mean, the movements that he makes in the box are good, and they open spaces. I mean, if you see the second goal against the Virgin Islands, half of that goal was Bonilla's goal. Um, and unfortunately, yesterday he missed the goal, but that's going to happen to a lot of players. Even the best players will miss opportunities. But people compare, and then you get Rugamas, who comes in and he scores a hat trick, and then yesterday he comes in and he scores another goal. People start comparing, and that's fine. But I did hear that the crowd was booing him or something yesterday when he left the field, and those are things that I hope that we wouldn't see that. But that's what it is. That's what it is. People have their opinions, and I'm sure Bonilla is an experienced player who's going to take that and do something good with that criticism that he's getting. And I just hope
rather
that
than other situations where it seemed to get to him.
yeah.
But really quickly, just wanted to go over the result from yesterday, since we already went over the result against Virgin Islands. Yesterday, El Salvador needed the win against Antigua and Barbuda to finally claim the first berth in Group A and see who they're going to face in the next round. So it was a must-win situation. Antigua Barbuda was, I think they were in first place, right, going into this match due to goal difference. I'm not 100% sure. But El Salvador needed at least a tie to depend on itself. So no, we had a better goal differential. I'm sorry. But then
Montserrat was in
that
first
was
place.
behind us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a must-win situation. And I mean, granted, Antigua and Barbuda was a accessible rival. Then it's one of those islands that has a small population, so you're not going to see a huge infrastructure in terms of their soccer there. But again, we saw it. They were a better rival than the Virgin Islands. In case you didn't watch the match, Antigua and Barbuda did have two really close shots on goal. One that went off the post, even though it seemed like Mario Gonzalez was gonna to make that save. And then another one where El Cacho Larin made a clearance right off the line. So there were these scares throughout the match, these moments where the defense kind of got caught flat-footed. There were some counterattacks, or at least one or two counterattacks done, where La Selecta got caught flat-footed, but then they got back and were able to absorb the ball without a shot on goal. So at least Antigua Barbuda kept it interesting. But the main thing was, again, keeping with this whole stride of showing a system or style that the fans can get behind, so that we're not, minute 87 needing a result still. And I think that was a great thing, that there was a plan, they stuck to it, and then they made these changes along the way that seemed to give results. You mentioned earlier about Heidel being put in his more natural position, in an attacking position, rather than as a defender. And he got that assist with Wadmer, and we haven't talked about Wadmer that much, but in that goal that he scored with the assist from Heidel, what I really liked about it was seeing his movement in the box, where you saw him more comfortable in his 9 position that he also has experience playing, rather than on the wing. I think there was a little disconnect with him on playing on the left flank, but I think part of that is he didn't have Mayen to play off of for the most part. I think when Mayen has been on the pitch, whether it was against Virgin Islands and then against Antigua Barbuda, you can see that connection that he makes basically with the winger on the respective side, and then also on the fullback that goes up. So I think Wildman, he's gonna have to get adjusted to the team. I think he's gonna have to calm his nerves a little bit, but also find that person to make his combos with. And in his case, it was Cacho Larin that they had some moments where they were making connections because Cacho was playing really high up most of the game against Santiago Barbuda, which was refreshing to see. But when he scored that goal, that those cuts that he made in the box, you can tell that he's very comfortable in the box, and that he's an option going forward in the 9 spot. And like we've seen before with Hugo Perez, the under 23s in these last 2 matches, he's willing to move these pieces around. It's not like he has his starting 11 and it's fixed. No, there's room for the rotations. And like you said, these matches, when we got CONCACAF, we cringed, but we've mentioned it before on this show where these matches where there is something enough on the line to put a little fire under their asses, they're going to perform where they have to. They weren't with De Los Cobos, so something needed to change, and it has. And I think now it's a perfect time to do that casting of players, because come September, if we make it to the octagonal, those pieces have to be more set. Right now is the perfect time to play with them, and Copa Oro is even better. That's like the final fine tuning, I believe, before Hugo Perez can see, okay, who's gonna get me these results? Who's gonna help me compete against the big dogs in the octagonal?
Yeah, yeah, and one thing, I mean, I kind of went off on a ramp analyzing the whole game, and but one thing that I want to mention is that I did see a team, the pressures very high up, just like we've heard. He said the first line of defense are the forwards, and I think we've seen that. So that's something that I really really liked about this new national team, new style of play. I think it's a team that presses really high up, which is good. Of course, the rivals were not necessarily the most um, the strongest teams out there, but you have to start somewhere. You have to. It's a great opportunity to get that rhythm going, to get the idea in the players' minds of how we want to play. So I'm happy to be seeing a little bit more of a attacking style of play. I think the team always tries to attack, even the center backs. I mean, Zabaleta had a very nice shot against the Virgin Islands, and I thought he had more opportunities to do that because they were giving him a lot of space to go up.
Yeah.
But yes, I like what I saw. Of course, with time, we're just gonna keep getting better and better, and I think that if we make it to the octagonal, we're gonna be a strong team. We're building momentum. So to me, I feel like the more we advance in this tournament, the better we're gonna get. By the time we play the octagonal, once we make it there, I think our team is gonna have more confidence. They're gonna know each other a little better. You mentioned Walmer, getting, he might have seemed a little nervous. He's getting to know a lot of the players. Plus, what I mentioned earlier, that he doesn't have a lot of professional experience. So
yeah, he's making huge leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
Overall, it's a cohesiveness, I think, that will, take its course, I believe. But I think, again, it's just he has to identify who's gonna be his core, his columna on the pitch, because that'll be vital. Like who's going to recover the balls, who's gonna be the defensive mid right in front of the center backs, and then who's gonna be the mids that are gonna be box to box with a little more freedom to be creative. But I do like seeing that with Larin, you have someone that is almost box to box. When they attack, he'll go up. Tamacas, I think, did a really good job when he was in. I know Dominguez was put in for him, and we didn't really see much of Dominguez, but he needs to get his rhythm back. So I'm glad that Hugo Perez took that into consideration, gave him his minutes. But I think, like we said, if Salvador has good laterales or has a good history of producing pretty good laterales, fullbacks, and so we need to exploit that. And I think part of being able to exploit that is if you have that number five that can drop back when they go up. So if there's some insurance, some security with the center backs, your number five, we have that freedom to put numbers up there. And from those little connections that you saw building, with Larin and Walmer or Tamacas and Perez or Heido when he was put in, I like to see that, because it's just like when you look at play FIFA and you see your squad and you see like the diamonds and the connections between the players, right? And it rates them between green, orange, or red. I think, or yellow. I don't remember the colors, but we're starting to see those connections that are more consistent than with the Los Goals, because I feel like from the half field back, there was good connections because there was always that option to touch back and just keep possession. But starting from the half field forward, that's where things started to drop off a bit. So I like seeing players that are creative, that will go one-on-one, that do have shots on goal. And I think we saw that with Josh. I think little by little he's going to incorporate himself, get to know the players, feel more comfortable. Same thing with Weidman. But despite that, these were debuts, and we saw really great debuts and returns to the national team. I think, like you said, the only person that was in debt out of everybody was Bonilla. I know that he's a divisive figure on the national team for fans because of the way he's dealt with certain situations and comments that he's made, and then also because he's had to deal with that shadow of Fito, because people are still want Fito in that starting 11 despite all his shortcomings. So he's had to deal with that. But I think, like you said, because of his history, because of what he's done for the national team, and that we have few options up on top, if he can play into Hugo Perez's system, he's going to put him in there. But obviously, Dair Rugames is making a hard case to be in that starting 11 with the goals that he's making. I mean, I think he sort of got lucky with the one he made against Santiago Barbuda. But it's a goal, man, and I'm glad he scored it. I'm glad he got his hat trick. I'm glad that Weidman got his goal in his debut. I'm glad that Eddie got a goal in his debut, all in at Cusca. That's what I mean by debut. And yeah, it did remind me of Purdi's debut, because I was actually at Cusca back then. It was raining, like the whole pitch was just like a pool basically that game. And I remember those were the early days of like Jaime Alas and Russo when they were running fast down the line and whatnot. And yeah, the strategy that game was almost like beach soccer. Since the ball would get stuck on the field, they would like juggle it and pass it in the air, and that was basically how they played the whole game. And then Puri scored, and it was great. So it definitely gave me that deja vu feeling, seeing him score second post in the air header. Nah, it was great. And I thought, oh yeah, Ugo's pumped right now for sure, because he's been hyping this guy up for being a 9 in the past. So my general take from this is it's been positive. You see another side to the team, despite the fact that there's some new guys. I mentioned that the whole copy and pasting for the first game because yeah, we had a new keeper, but you saw Joaquin Rivas start rather than Josh Perez. But now you're seeing the new faces in the starting 11 versus Antigua and Barbuda. And yet, yes, they're a little more aggressive, but again, cohesiveness is still the thing that they need to aspire to. But overall, positive. And I think this is exactly what the team needed, like this little injection, this like stimmy shot going into the next series, which is going to be against St. Kitts and Nevis. And round. Let's see. The leg one is going to be on June 12th at 1 Pacific Standard Time. They're going to be playing away. And then leg two of the series is going to be played Tuesday, June 15th at 6 Pacific Standard Time in the Cusca. So get your DVRs ready if you live in Europe or Australia or way too far away to watch this live. But it's going to be pretty exciting. I don't know too much about St. Kitts, but I'm glad it's not Trinidad and Tobago. That's all I can say about that. What are your
Are
thoughts?
you sure?
Yes.
This Trinidad and Tobago. Are you sure?
I didn't see Trinidad and
Because
Tobago, but it is Trinidad and Tobago. I was really surprised that they ended up bombing. I do have a friend from Trinidad and Tobago, and I was like, "Yo, what's happening?" He's like, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me." So who knows what happened with them? I guess because St. Kitts and Nevis doesn't have that much of a history, or that, that we're aware of, at least. I think on paper it seems like it shouldn't be that huge of a challenge. But again, this is a Caribbean. You never know what cards are going to be dealt. But I think with this shot of vibrancy, this energy, I hope it helps in terms of sticking with the program, sticking with the style, and coming up big and just getting past this series, because there's so much more to come. So much more to come. When you think about what happened to Guatemala, you kind of have to feel bad for them, considering their league, is a decent league in the area, relatively. They're dealing with a lot of issues after being banned. Despite their history, they've never made it to a World Cup, and to get stuck in this phase, despite CONCACAF giving them an extra breather, you kind of feel bad for them. But
they won,
yeah,
3 games and draw 1 game, right?
yeah, and it still wasn't enough because of goal
Yeah, I
differential.
mean it's crazy. I mean this whole tournament is crazy. But before we move on, there's another point I wanted to mention, at least a
It's all
thought that
good.
I've been having.
It's all good.
We have, this is my opinion. You look at the starting 11 against the U.S. Virgin Islands, and then you see the starting 11 against Antigua Barbuda. I mean, it was just one sub, right? It was just Josh who started instead of Joaquin.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I like about this national team is that you look at the starters and you look at the bench, and I'm like, 90% of those guys on the bench can start.
Yeah.
Or 80%. I mean, maybe more like an 80% of those guys on the bench. A lot of fans, if you ask them, there could be a big debate about, no, Mayen should be starting instead of Seren. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, right? Or Monterrosa. I mean, Monterrosa is doing really well, but Mayen, he's having a really good moment right now, and he brings a lot of quality to the midfield, holding the ball, opening spaces, nice touches. I mean, he's a good player. So what I'm trying to go is that it's a good thing that it's not like, hey, so-and-so is tired, so we need to sub him. Who are we going to put in? No. I mean, you have, let's just take yesterday's game. You have a Jairo Enriquez who can come in and can, potentially make a difference in that right wing. You have Joaquin Rivas, who's, in my opinion, has been a pretty solid, consistent player all this time. And I don't think Joaquin was sub because he was not playing well against the U.S. Virgin Islands. I think it was a sub that Hugo wanted to try out with Josh.
Try out Jairo too.
Yeah. And Jairo. So then you have, in the center back, you have
Dominguez,
who can easily play with Zabaleta in the back.
and that's that Mancia wasn't even called up.
Right. And then you have up front, you have Rugamas, who's been a super sub. Who else? We have good players on the bench. We have good players who can make a difference who can easily be playing, like I said, as in the starting 11. So that to me is a very important part of this national team, because we have players who can, come in, make a difference, and it's not like the team is gonna go down necessarily because of a sub. I mean, we've seen them; the subs made big differences in the games that we've had so far. So I just wanted to point that out before we move on to our next rival.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's definitely key to have that competition, just like Nadine was saying. Um, I've already mentioned it. I feel like it's all stacked when it comes to the mid. It's just a matter of figuring out who's cohesive with who fits into the system, who wants it enough. Because it comes to mind, Granito could easily be there, Puñed could easily be there. And I think that's a good thing that there's guys waiting on the wing, because you can't have everybody. But hopefully, if they stay motivated enough and Hugo Perez, takes them into consideration and needs to try some things out, depending on the results that we get, it's good that we have those guys on the wing. And it'll be interesting to see what he decides, because I know people kind of get antsy and then start saying, no, I want this guy there, I want that guy there, and they make their starting 11s. Like, we're all coaches, it's part of having fun with this. But I am eager to see, what his three in the mid are going to be. But I like, again, I'll repeat, I like the fullbacks being able to move up and having that mobility and being able to exploit that on the attack, which is something that we didn't really have too much with the Los Cobos. Everyone was set back and just touching it around. So no, it's definitely great to see that change. Great to see people in Cusca, definitely.
it seems like in the soccer world, COVID is gone in El Salvador.
Seriously. Well, I mean, like, sports in general, except for like basketball, it seems like all sport, in the world of sports, things are back, at least in the US, because you're starting to see a lot of fans in El Salvador too, like no protocol and whatnot, which is good. I mean, if people aren't getting sick and everything, everything's working out, great. It's about time. That's all I can say. And man, I'm so eager. I got to plan my trip out to Salvador. Hopefully, if we make it to the octagonal, I definitely want to try and go out there at
You can
some
play.
point.
You can pay with your bitcoins now. So
Oh man, don't don't get me
all
started
right,
on
move
that.
on. Let's move on. So,
Yeah.
entonces,
Anyways, so
San
let's
Cristóbal y Nieves.
get your minutas ready, because we're playing against San Kitts Nevis. So we'll see how that goes. Hugo, do you have any info on them? Did you observe anything about them during this last
I
qualifying stage?
haven't watched many of their games, to be honest, but I have taken a look at their roster, and I think they're going to be very, very similar to Antigua and Barbuda. It's a team that is made up of some local players with a whole bunch of fifth division, fourth division, third division English league, mostly fifth and fourth division. But I believe they do have a player from the Premier League, as well as maybe another player from the Championship League. So they have more individualities. I think more players who can make a difference on their own. But I think they're going to be very similar to Antigua and Barbuda. Obviously, they're going to be pumped that they left Trinidad and Tobago out. So, I mean, the psychological aspect always makes a difference. I mean,
And they're the Cinderella story of this CONCACAF Caribbean Battle Royale. Um, do you want to mention what you said in your tweet about the ones that survived this
yeah,
Battle
I thought it
Royale and made
was
it into the second round?
yes, yeah. Interesting, because I haven't seen that note. There's a lot of people on Twitter who, all they do is look at numbers and data, and they post about that. But I was looking at the current ranking, right? So I mean, a lot of us don't. A lot of people don't think that is a good system. That the ranking system, especially when El Salvador was left out, it was like, okay, the top five go through, and then they put everyone else, right? Everyone else in the same pot. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at the ranking here. So you have, Honduras in the fifth spot, and then you have El Salvador in the sixth spot, and we
Yeah,
went,
we're still there.
and we qualified. I mean,
Yeah.
to the next round of the
Mm.
new format. And then you have Canada, and they qualified. Canada's the seventh spot. Then you have Curacao in the eighth spot. They qualify as well. Then you have Panama in the ninth spot, and then you have Haiti in the 10th spot, and they went through. So the next team, based on the ranking that should have qualified, was Trinidad and Tobago, and they didn't. So then after Trinidad, you have Guatemala, who didn't make it, Antigua and Barbuda, who didn't make it, and then you have St. Kitts and Nevis. So basically, St. Kitts is the one team that is not
The
in
wild
order.
card. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the wild card. So, but basically, the ranking is not that far off, because when this new format was introduced, my first thought was, shit, man, probably a team that is in the 30th spot is gonna go through or something like that. But from what we're seeing, not much change.
Yeah, I think the main thing that you can complain about is how you can have a record like what they had and still not go through. That must be really frustrating. And at this point, I think the most complicated series, the best head to head, is probably the Panama Curacao. I'll just let you
That's
guys.
yeah.
It's El Salvador, St. Kitts and Nevis. It's Panama Curacao, and then the other series is Haiti versus Canada. The team of Montagliani. That's his name, right?
That's good. Yeah, but that's going to be a good one too, because Haiti has,
I mean,
traditionally
I'm
have
rooting for Haiti. I'm rooting for
pretty
Haiti because it would
good
be
teams.
hilarious if the rewrite, the COVID reformatting of the CONCACAF qualifiers and Canada ends up choking, which I don't know.
They
I
might end
think
up
they're
with
the
a new
favorite.
format, so maybe don't even say that.
Don't jinx. We can't jinx it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, ladies and gentlemen, I like our chances against St. Kitts and Nevis. I think it's fine tuning as we go. We're in this race, and we're at a pit stop right now. You gotta fix some of the bolts and wirings and stuff here and get it going against St. Kitts and Nevis. I know a friendly match was announced after the LA match against Wat on the 26th. They go to Croatia to play Qatar, I believe the 29th, right?
Yeah, I have my plane ticket already.
Oh, dang.
How about you?
It must be nice because I don't.
They said the Croatian government said that any Salvadorian who wants to go is invited for free. They pay, all expenses covered, because of that one photographer who took that photo in the World Cup.
Shout out to Yuri, the
Yeah.
Salvadoran, the photographer for the AP, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so we have that series, the head-to-head on the 12th and 15th. Then the friendly match against Wat in LA. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go there, but hopefully we'll see you there. This is a call for the Salvadoran Soccer Federation to please give our buddy here, Urwal, some free tickets so at least he can show up, man. He's a scout. Do your job. Give him a ticket. You heard it here. Anyway, then there's the match in Croatia against Qatar, which obviously is something special. It's how it hasn't played in Europe in a long time. Qatar, obviously, has been invited to the Gold Cup, right? Is it the Gold Cup or Copa America they got invited to?
The Gold Cup.
Yeah, so they got invited to Gold Cup. They want to spar. What better place to do it than close to the beautiful beaches of Croatia? and I'll leave it at that so I don't get in trouble. And we have the Gold Cup looming, where it's a final spot to fine tune. I think tournaments like these in the middle of qualifiers can be a double-edged sword. I think it's good to compete, to aim high, but you don't want to show all your cards, and you obviously don't want the risk of injury during this tournament because it's the Gold Cup. I don't think we can aspire to win it at this point, but obviously want to compete. So I hope Hugo Perez is able to navigate that fine line between going all out and using his rotation so that the players aren't completely affected by it. Obviously, this is the premier chance for players from El Salvador to show their skills internationally because of it's a prestigious tournament of the area. But obviously, I think priority number one has to be the octagonal because Gold Cup is special. It happens every 2 years and whatnot. It's designed for us not to necessarily do well. It's always designed for the U.S. and Mexico to win it. But with the octagonal, anything can happen, especially with more matches. It'll be more opportunities for us to watch La Selecta, and hopefully we can go down, catch a match at Cusca before the end of the year.
Bitcoin's ready.
I gotta catch up with that. I only got the Chuck E. Cheese coins still from when I was a kid. And moving along, I know one issue that came up in the build up to the last couple of days was Tomas Romero kind of going MIA at the last minute there. It's a tricky subject. I mean, obviously, I have nothing personal against the guy. There's two basic theories or ways or explanations to the situation. One is that he's thinking about the possibility of the U.S. still and wants to keep that door open. The other one is he's vying for minutes in his club, LAFC, and by playing with El Salvador, because he's basically, El Salvador is going to be playing over 7 matches in like a month and a half, something like that, even more, 9 matches in like a month and a half. That's a lot of time away from your club. And since MLS doesn't necessarily, it schedules so weird and funky, it plays throughout all these tournaments. And so from that point of view, I kind of understand that if you're on the fringe and he's like 19 and you haven't established yourself with your club and that's what your goal is, because that's what your bread and money is. I get that. Also, the whole concept of if he identifies more with the U.S., despite having played for Salvadoran national teams in the past, and he's not ready to take that leap of faith, as has been mentioned here, I mean, it's up to the dude, there's ways of handling it, and I don't think his camp necessarily dealt with it the best of ways. But as we've talked with players on this show, it's a very personal decision. And I remember Pablo Puñet saying, if he could, it'd be awesome to represent all of the countries that he identifies with due to his background. But again, there's ways of handling it. I know people were kind of throwing shade at him, saying that he did us dirty and whatnot. And, that's fair to say because of the last minute aspect of it. Ironically, Hugo Perez had to improvise calling Kevin Caravantes to be the third keeper. He got to party. Unfortunately, Dustin Correa wasn't because he didn't show up to camp even after winning the championship with FAS. So that was another weird situation. And I think that speaks volumes too, that despite all this weird stuff happening right before the last 2 matches, fans are a little skeptical, saying, oh, we're starting off on the wrong foot. That didn't necessarily show, right, Hugo?
I think if you're gonna have protocols, you have to follow the protocols. I mean, it's just the way it is, you know.
It's
I
like
hope
if you
that's
have a
the
flight, right? You have a flight
yeah,
somewhere and you're invited to party with your friends, but you got to be up at a certain time.
yeah.
Either you show up drunk and hungover, but you get there on time and you say, "All right, I got there." But I don't know. Yeah, that situation.
I miss flights as a result of partying. It's not nice.
Can I share
I
an anecdote too?
go
All
for it.
right, all right. So here's an example of at least I made the flight. So went to Merida 2008. The night before our flight at 6 in the morning, we were out drinking with some friends and whatnot. Basically, got like an hour of sleep. We were gonna get like an hour or two of sleep. Slept in, woke up, scrambled to get our stuff together. Called the cab. We were running late. Uh, got in the cab, paid the cab driver some extra money to haul ass. So he got us he sped all the way to the airport. Get to the airport, I lost the little paper visa that they give you because I was still pretty faded at the time. And then I don't know how they felt. They gave me mercy. They showed me mercy and they wrote me a new one right on the spot. Like, get out of here. And we barely made it on the plane. So it's possible, man. Like you can do your thing, but you got to make it on the plane. I mean, that deadline of 9:30 on Sunday, that sucks, but it's like
Was it 9:30 in the morning that
I
he had
think
to
it
be there,
was
or
at
9:30
night.
at night?
I
Yeah.
think it was at night. And I mean, I think that's a little harsh considering it was his first championship as a professional player. He's had different spells at FUS, and FUS has gone on a dry spell for a while. So I get why it would be special, but I don't know if it's more special than like being a part of like a new national team. Like you kind of want to show up to the first day of your job and create a good impression. And what I take away with this is he got over it. And, obviously, he's not killing anybody. It's not horrible. He made a decision. I'm not judging him based off of it. But it just seems that, yeah, you want to make a good impression on the first day of work. And he chose, to celebrate, a well-earned victory. But yeah, that was interesting.
Again, to me, it's just rules are rules, discipline is discipline, and whether we like it or not, you either you agree to the rules or you renegotiate the rule. And to me, that's what it comes down to. I mean, I'm not saying it was choices, right? In life, we have choices. He chose to celebrate. Nothing against that. But then, he was well aware of that there might be consequences with
Yeah.
the national team, and there were consequences. This is a choice. We all have choices. I didn't have the luck that you had. I was stuck in a tiny
Where did you
airport in
get stuck?
Paris for a tiny airport in Paris. I mean tiny.
What time
For a
was your
whole day.
flight?
For a whole day, I was. I got confused. The flight was like at 8:10. I think it was like at 8. No, it was like 8:30 in the morning, right? And yeah, I did the same thing. I kind of like my third night in Paris. I finally made some friends, and we stayed out late and drinking wine. And I don't drink a lot, so but that night I just remember I couldn't feel my cheeks, so I was
Oh,
probably
dang.
the drunkest I've been. Went to sleep. Got up at 8 in the morning.
Nice. That
And I
sucks.
remember I was like, oh, and then I go to the front desk and I asked the guy about the airport, because basically I had to take a shuttle. What I didn't know is that the airport was over an hour away from Paris, from the city. Um, on the bus, the special bus.
Damn.
So basically, at least I didn't have to pay any fees. I told them, hey, I got up late, missed my flight. They were like, okay, we'll put you on the next flight. But there were only 2 flights to Rome out of that airport per day. The one I missed, and then another one at 9 p.m. So, anyways, I chose to do that, right?
Yeah. Hey, but fortunately for us, we're not paid to do soccer. I'm sorry, Hugo, you're gonna get there. I know I'm not roasting you, but fortunately, we are civilians. We can make those decisions. But as civilians, we got to make a good impression on that first day of work. So yeah, interesting how this whole case played out. I think the best thing that can be done is some stuff needs to be dealt with internally, but I think there's some communication with the press and stuff that becomes public just to set precedents so that there's no questions. So I think that's pretty much the way to handle it. Another thing that came up that kind of was looming with the start of all this was Enrico Hernandez and his not being able to play with the national team. The way that it's being handled is he's dealing with an injury, and it's unfortunate that he's going to miss out on like this huge string of matches. Obviously, like we've said, this is a perfect time to insert players, try them out. Um, but again, I think we can't put too much pressure on him as it is right now. He's one of those new faces. He hasn't debuted with the senior squad yet, but I think we all have that inkling that just like Perez was inserted and flourished, just like Zabaleta was inserted and he's done well, just like Martinez was inserted and you can see his growth exponentially just in 2 matches. That due to his training, due to his development as a player, that he would be able to thrive, especially under a system that Hugo Perez uses. So I think that's something that we need to weigh on, and I think when the time is right, it will happen and it will bear fruits. So we'll see how this plays out.
I heard today actually in interview with Hugo Perez that he's not ruling Enrico out for the game against Qatar. Um, Even if it doesn't go to the Gold Cup, again, I'm not sharing any internal information. This is what I heard in an interview that they might consider that depending on how he's doing physically. Vitesse starts preseason on the 21st. So he's just going to be in the early days of preseason, but
Of June?
Of June.
Okay.
And the game against Qatar is what, July 4th?
Something like that, yeah.
Or 7th, something like that. Anyways, but that was good news to hear. I mean, I think that even if he doesn't go to the Gold Cup, if they have an opportunity to see him over there and at least get him to know the guys and play some minutes with the guys, it might be positive given that, he's not too far from Croatia.
And just as June's been a jam-packed month, or will be, for La Selecta as it heads into its series against St. Kitts and Nevis, and then its friendly match against Guatemala in LA on the 26th. July is going to be jam-packed as well, just as the friendly with Qatar in Croatia has been scheduled for July 4th. But on July 10th, that's when it's always going to be making its debut against Curaçao. Then it will play its second match against a team to be determined still from the teams, battling it out to qualify. And it will close the group stage against none other than Mexico on July 18th. So if they make it past that, it'll be at least 5 matches in 1 month, and things will kind of die down from there until the octagonal starts, if and when we qualify for it. So again, we're gonna wrap this thing up. We have pretty high hopes, decent hopes. I think the national team did fairly well in the debut, the beginning of the Hugo Perez era. It's great to see the new faces score their goals. You know, they're not question marks. They're starting to answer for themselves, answer for the call. And I think fans more and more are going to be comfortable with that concept of you can insert some of these guys that develop in other leagues, throw them into the mix, and they will produce. Not all of them are going to be, 100% cracks or saviors and whatnot. But I think if there's a system in place and these players can be incorporated into, we're going to see great things. So I have a good taste in my mouth, and I'm really looking forward to watching all these matches within the next 5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, I feel confident. I mean, I don't think we have to be like, oh yeah, this is this team. We're just gonna go there and kill them. I don't think so, but I feel like we have very good chance. I think it's gonna be important for the team to be a little bit more sharp up front, score the opportunities that we create, and I have a very good feeling about making it to the octagonal.
Definitely. I want to give a shout out to our followers on Twitter, listeners that interact with us on Twitter, like David Garcia. Thanks, man, for always commenting on our stuff and checking in. Mauri Melar as well. Also, Christian Hughes, straight out of H-Town. Thanks for checking in during the match. And Christian Bimbo, thanks for hitting us up and checking in when the next episode was going to be. We've stalled a little bit. We've been busy. Obviously, 2 matches. We didn't want to give you guys too many episodes back to back. So I think this has been kind of like the perfect amount of stuff to talk about. And we'll be here right after the series against St. Kitts. We'll wrap that up. Hopefully, looking forward to the octagonal. But the thing right on the horizon after that will be the friendlies and then the Gold Cup. So everyone, thanks again for listening. Thanks for being patient with us. Thanks for checking us out. Again, share, talk about us with your friends, your family. We're going to try and keep this thing growing. We definitely appreciate all the interactions, and hopefully we'll see you guys at some of these games throughout the upcoming months, because there's a lot, and there's stuff to look forward to. So again, I'm Andres Rico, this is Hugo Alvarado, and you've been listening to the Corner Blue. Take it easy.